everybody. Welcome back to the Vessel Church podcast. We're so excited. Part 2. We actually are in City Roots right now. It's pretty awesome. We're filming on a Sunday morning, and it's great to be here. And Taylor's with me, and we're going to get into part 2 of how Vessel became Vessel. And so without further ado, let's just get back into it. So Taylor, bring us back in where we left off in part 1 and kind of bring us into part 2 and honestly why the reason we're filming here in City Roots.
Yeah. So part 1, we left off on how everything was high. There was prophecies, there was God vision, there was, words that went forth. And then we moved to Baton Rouge. We're so excited.
Prayer walks happening.
Right. Like heavens are opening up. Yeah. And then everything shuts down.
Yeah.
So this is around April of last year, April of 2020. And because of that, we literally had to ditch every single plan. Like there were all the things that we had written down as a strategy to do, we literally had to completely abandon, because it started off, and you remember, like it was, stay at home for 2 weeks. Well, 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks. And so in the midst of all that, it was just, I'm not going to lie, like
it's hard.
Oh, it was overwhelming. It was very, very difficult. Megan and I, we definitely had questions. We started, having to really lean onto the words that went forth. If I tell people, had it not been for the prayer walks that we did beforehand, we probably wouldn't have been able to make it through.
Because you just were questioning at this point, like, is this really God's will?
But we knew from time and time again, the confirmations, the vision, and especially those prayer walks that we went on a couple weeks before this took place, God had spoken. This is what we are supposed to do. This is where He wanted us to be. And so it really was. It was a challenge at first, but then in the midst of all that, we knew. I think what it is God still wants us, and it's our aim to be a Book of Acts church.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is we all want Book of Acts miracles and we want Book of Acts results, but we don't want Book of Acts context.
Yeah.
And because of that context that we were in, because of the situation that we were, that faith now had to be put to the test. And anytime that God puts faith to the test and asks you to do something that is hard, that is difficult, but when you obey that word, He meets you in the miraculous. And that's what He started to do. We had our first Bible study with a friend of mine that I actually grew up with. I knew that he hadn't been living for God. People will call him a backslider, in that sense, where he lived for God at one point and then kind of went astray. But I mean, it's a long story, but the long story short is I thought he was always in Baton Rouge. Turns out he had went to New Orleans. And whenever I text him, I was just praying for him one morning and I just felt led to text him. And dude, he shoots back and is pumped, let's meet up, let's hang out.
Wow.
And so he tells me about being in New Orleans and how he had to come back because of the stay-at-home order. Yeah. And he was a chef over at a restaurant there. And then he starts opening up to me about how he really wants to get back into a walk with God.
Wow.
He really wants, and he has no idea.
He has no idea you're starting a church in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, we said nothing. He was just at the house just talking to us. And we're like,
this is a clear sign. Yeah.
Yeah. So his name's Dylan. Dylan was our first Bible study. And bro, to watch the work that God's done in his life, how far Dylan has come by way of God's Spirit in the past year has been incredible. And then so that was our first Bible study, but we weren't able to really meet. We weren't able to do anything. We had interest meetings planned, preview services, all the stuff that they tell you to do, but we couldn't do any of it.
Yeah.
And so everybody's going online.
Yep.
And while praying one morning, I had this a similar way how God kind of dropped the idea of Baton Rouge, and in my mind, He dropped this idea of doing a study on the Book of Acts.
Okay.
And doing it all online. And you remember that.
Yeah.
Because
I just remember seeing them every day. And man, like from a technical standpoint, like I was just so impressed. Like I already knew you're a great videographer and editor, but I mean, people don't understand. I'm going to brag on you because you're not only teaching, and I know you had your dad and Pastor Todd Johnson like guest hosting a few of them, but for the most part, you were shooting, editing, and teaching all these podcasts, or all these Bible studies. And man, it was just like, bro, like you honestly inspired me in those moments. Like when I was going through it during the pandemic, and I talked about before on my own podcast for a Bible Center, like you were one of the reasons. Like, man, if Taylor can do it right now, he's literally doing everything. I can edit some videos, I can get it together. But man, it was so inspiring to see that happening. But I know for sure you didn't feel that way. You were just you're in the grind.
Yeah. And we talked about it later. And it's like, bro, I didn't even realize how
what you got yourself into.
Oh my God. It was, I'm thinking like, just like do a little study here and there.
Yeah.
But it ended up becoming this journey through the book of Acts. And what happened is not only was it a way that God actually used vessels, social media and stuff like that to start connecting with people in the area before we ever even met them, but it also gave Megan and I, because it wasn't like I would just study, shoot, edit, post.
Yeah.
Like it was getting into my conversation. Like Megan and I, we would talk every single day,
living it,
about what we're reading, because we would read it together, and we would study together, and we would talk about what it actually takes to be a church like the church in the book of Acts. And it got into our spirits. Like it got in, like that's why we strive with everything that we can for us to use what we would say is our mirror for the church. I would argue Acts 2:42 through 47. In those 5 verses, you see this operation of the church in like this little scope. It's like you get a little snapshot of what the church looked like at that time, and we use that as kind of like our litmus test, like where we compare on a very, very, very often that looking to see, is this what we're doing? Is this how we're operating? And it got into us, like it got into our being, and it's what drives us now. And it's hard. Like it's not fun. It's very, it's very inconvenient. Right.
Inconvenient truths.
And so, right. And that was, that got into us, and that helped shape even more of the vision of, like, we even looked at it and was like, I wish we would have studied this before we ever even made plans. Right. Because like, we started basing our plans not off of just things that we were dreaming up, but things that are in the Word of God, in the book of Acts.
We talk a lot about, sorry to interrupt, but we talk a lot about culture. And I feel like, it's hard to just come up with culture, but you kind of found a blueprint for culture in the book of Acts.
And I argue that it's what every church
should be like.
Every church's culture, like the same way that God spoke about the name vessel. And I'm not saying that we've done everything perfect and everybody should follow us by any means, but I mean, I still got a lot to learn. I tell people, if there's anything that church planning taught me, it's that I don't know anything. Right? But at the same time, if we're not using the Word as our foundation for how we're molded, how we're shaped, and how we operate, then it's all for a loss. Like we're not going to have any sort of kingdom expansion or kingdom gain. It'll just be empty efforts, right? So that was an interesting season, because
interesting.
By the end of it, I was burnt out, bro.
I mean, I don't blame you, man. That's just a lot of video, a lot of recording, studying. And I said it earlier, like I didn't mean it to be like, oh, you're just studying and on the next one. Like I know you and May, like you were living it.
No,
So it honestly helped forge you guys.
Right. It really did.
So you guys, you finish up the Book of Acts series, and I feel like we're glossing over it, but it was hard and you did it. So like, congrats. But
Thank you.
You get through that, and you were telling me earlier that the state of Louisiana was kind of in May, right? sort of, was it May?
Yeah, it was around May where we had this small false glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
And Megan and I started thinking like, okay, we went through this like small time of restrictions going back. And so we thought this is the time, this is the moment, or we can have something.
Yeah.
We can do something. And so we had our first interest meeting planned. It was put on, I think it was June 3rd or June 4th of 2020. And it was that small window of time. Masks weren't enforced yet. There were still social distance things, but for the most part, like things were starting to open up minimally. And it happened right here where we are.
That's so awesome.
At City Roots in that corner right behind me. And bro, I tell you, it was a God night for multiple reasons. One, because we're right in the heart of where Megan and I feel called to, Mid-City Baton Rouge. Two, we had been developing a relationship with the management and team here at City Roots, which is an incredible coffee shop.
Shout out to them, letting us record here right now as well.
If you want to go, try the Espresso Cello.
Yes.
It's the manager, Dominic. It's his creation, and it is fantastic.
It's amazing. That's what we're drinking right now.
Yeah. But we felt a covering. We honestly felt a covering here. We felt a peace in City Roots. And that's a weird way to say, like, it's a coffee shop or whatever, but remember, we're in that mentality that we can establish any place as a place where God dwells, because that's what the Book of Acts church did.
Yeah.
It didn't need to have a church sign in front. It just needed to have believers that were willing to gather and pray and believe.
So it didn't matter where you were, but in City Roots happened to be that place.
Yeah, and I believe this. I heard one pastor talk about how we need to have wells in our lives where we go on a regular basis, and we, like Jesus, and we meet people at those places, and ministry just organically happens. I would argue City Roots was our first well.
That's awesome.
Right? Like, it's the first place where we would spend a lot of time cultivating relationships, praying with people, and even some of our initial Bible studies, meeting people at City Roots. And so they let us have our interest meeting here on that, I think it was a Friday night. And, bro, that was
special.
Oh my gosh. It was so special. We had,
in that moment, you had worked so hard. You and May both, and on the scene, behind the scene, worked so hard to just get to that moment. Because it felt like you were denied that, with the pandemic stay-home order. How did you feel? And I didn't even tell you I was going to ask you this, but how did you just feel? Like, did you even just take a moment in that moment and just step back and this is actually happening right now?
Like, the whole night, it was borderline hard to operate. Like, it was, and when I say operate, it was borderline hard for me as a human.
Yeah.
Like, to talk to people, because I would get emotional. And also, mind you, this is the first large level social setting that we had in about 2 months.
Dude. And
so just that in combination with all of the emotions running through. Absolutely. That's a great question. And thankfully, it was something where Megan and I, we would pause and just take it in.
Yeah.
And because we were kind of with each other most of the night. And we got to meet some incredible people. We had a lot of friends, a lot of family come out and support. But we had a goal our goal was 5 people. Yeah. That if we could meet 5 brand new people, then that in our minds was a success. One would be a success, mind you. It's not, but we
5
wanted
was just that number.
5. Yeah, we just were okay, if it's more than one, what do we feel like is a realistic goal? And we were 5.
Yeah.
5, it'd be amazing to make 5 good connections. We ended up after that night, and we had a ton of people come out and help us. And I don't have time to even go through the list of people that came out. Do that. I could get emotional right now thinking about it.
Yeah.
But we, at the end of the night, had 11 people that we had never met before fill out an interest card.
From being 5 is great, now you had 11.
11.
That's amazing, man.
It was like paper gold. in my hands, bro.
You and May like get back to the house and you're just like,
bro, we prayed over them. Like
that's
we
so awesome.
wept,
That's special,
we
man.
prayed,
So special.
and we were just like looking at it, like this is what we're here for. Like this is 11 people that,
because you go from just being you two alone for 2 months,
exactly,
doing all these things and just trying to just so hard to make it happen, and then now you have like tangible, like you can feel that.
Yeah.
You can feel all that.
yeah. We we're like, people are actually interested.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Not me. Actually, totally me, because it was a God thing.
Yeah.
That's just a dumb joke. Yeah. But yeah, dude, it was fantastic. So we were freaking out. We were like emotional. We're praying. We're crying.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, like let's get to work. Let's do this. So we start setting up some Bible studies and following up with some people. And to be expected, we didn't have a 100% retention rate with all 11 contacts. But what is cool is that about 6 or 7 of them we're still in either constant communication with, or they are a part of the Vessel Church family.
Okay.
We met some pillar people that night. Like, we met some people that have helped with so much of the, like, it was divine appointments. That's the only way that I can describe it. Mm-hmm. Absolute divine appointments. And so we started doing some Bible studies with each of them. And then we had our first, like, our next step was the home group. Yes. We had one home group on a Thursday night in our home, about 2 or 3 weeks after the interest meeting. And that was in itself.
At that point, did the state go back into that, into the state home order?
Oh yeah. Like it was bad.
So when you talk about a small window for the interest meeting, bro,
it was legitimately like the next week they locked things back down again.
Wow.
Because we were going to try, like, preparing for the interest meeting. We also had like another time for another interest meeting in mind that was going to take place 2 weeks after our first home group, and there was no way.
Couldn't happen.
Everything shut back down.
Man.
So
you talk about divine appointments, man.
Dude,
like in that
seriously.
moment, you guys really had a meeting with literally a small window of time. 11 people signed up. Obviously, it's you can't think about having 100% retention, but you kept people. You called them pillar people, and every church needs those.
Yeah.
And you get those people, and so then you're figuring out, like, okay, when can we meet again?
Yeah, and we had no idea.
Yeah.
We still, like, and that was like, it was a big factor. Mm-hmm. Was, you got all these churches that are established, like they're able to kind of figure some stuff out.
They have a little bit more infrastructure.
Right.
Yeah.
But for us, like, you're talking about these people that we initially connected with. There's something I learned while working at an IT tech firm. I was an account executive there in sales, and they said time kills all deals.
Yeah.
And I apply that with souls. Like, time kills all interest. Mm-hmm. And the more time that was happening in between our initial meetings with these people and Bible studies or any type of home group was more time. And now there's way more opportunity for the enemy to come in and steal anything, because all these people are just at their homes on Netflix, Instagram, just like their minds being completely consumed by all this stuff. Yeah. Right. We knew we could not keep doing this, but we didn't know what the answer was. Mm-hmm. So after a couple of those home groups in our home, Megan and I, we realized, and I was telling you this earlier, that things kept on getting more and more restricted.
Yeah. As the summer went on, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, you're hearing about how, well, whenever they do start opening up, it'll open up in phases.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of talking, and it hit me one day, like this isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be here a while.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy to think about that in retrospect, right?
Like right now.
Isn't that wild to think about? Like, because we were holding on to, like, it'll be over in a couple weeks. And like now we're like, we look back and we're like, we're so naive.
Yeah.
like what a bunch of idiots.
It went from 2 weeks to 4 months, 5 months.
Yeah. But we had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, and you have no other thing than to be positive. No one's like, we're shut down forever. Mm-hmm. Like, you want to be positive. Like, you have to be.
You have to be. But at that time, like, it really is. I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot until now. So I'm kind of having like a weird moment. Yeah. Like a weird, such a different mentality.
Yeah.
Like it was a different world. I thought in a completely different way back then. Now it's kind of just a part of our existence, unfortunately. And I believe it'll continue to wane off. But
I felt the same way. I felt like in those moments I was kind of not lying to myself, but just convincing myself it would end faster than it would.
Yeah. Well, I think we all wanted it to, but then it doesn't help that we are kind of told that it would, right? Like it was just, continually being progressed or elongated more and more as time went on. So after that conversation that we had, we just realized all right, let's just, if we can't find somewhere for us to start meeting and having any type of rhythm of services, right?
Because in your mind, you're talking about time. In your mind, you're like, we got to go. We got to get this. We have 11 people in our hands right now. Right. We have to start meeting. We have to start connecting them to us. So that's where that urgency came from.
Yeah. And so we just said, okay, let's meet in our home. Let's make a Sunday service in our home.
Yeah.
And that started in the middle of August in 2020, where we took all of these Bible studies that we're doing outside.
Because you had a lot of individual Bible studies.
Right. We had several. And then my mom and dad also did different Bible studies that they were doing. And so our first one.
Hodgepodge of people.
Oh, my Lord. It was so many personalities, so many people of different age groups. Yeah, just literally thrown into a pot to boil, and everybody's screaming inside, And Megan and I were kind of it didn't really hit me until that day. I'm like, oh, I started thinking about people, right? I was like, oh, Lord, this person is about to meet this person who they're totally opposite. This person's about to meet this person,
Yeah. And the dots were connecting.
Oh, yeah. And Megan and I, at this point, we didn't really have, outside of my mom and dad, we didn't really have a team, because we had people that were interested in coming to help that would manifest later.
At that time, though, it was just you four.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I told Megan, after that day, I said, we're one mutiny away from this whole thing going off the rails. They could all
we're
just
one vote away.
Yeah, they could all show up because we're outnumbered.
Yeah,
they could all show up and be like, "Hey, we don't like this. We don't like you." Out, and then we'd be all the way back at ground zero. And so I'm I'm thinking about this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But thankfully, as difficult as the first couple of ones were,
you guys caught a rhythm.
Oh man, it was special.
I remember seeing those first videos and stuff, and it's man, there's something special happening at your guys' house.
It was a really, really special time, and we're so thankful. We had the opportunity to introduce some people to getting into the presence of God and allowing His Spirit to move in ways that they never had experienced before, and that in itself was worth it all.
Yeah,
that in itself, those moments were so fantastic, and we had such a great rhythm going there that we started running out of room in our driveway. So people are having to park in the streets. They're having to park in across the street in our by our neighbor's house.
And meanwhile, everyone's being told to stay home. And your house is
I know it's not a good look now, but
no, you did what you had to do.
It was our mission, man.
Yeah.
We had to, we if people wanted to be masked up, and we were respectful of anybody else's guards that they had up, and we had people that didn't come to the home group that we would do Bible studies with just them. Yeah. Right, but they didn't want to be in a large gathering of 5 or more. Mm. So, and we cater to that. That's fine.
And you even did online midweeks as well.
Yeah, we did online midweeks so that we're we're not just meeting
every week,
a
2
ton.
times a week.
Yeah, exactly. So, bro, but we were now those people in the neighborhood. We were now those people that I can't stand, which is you got your cars all up in my yard. I'm turning into my father-in-law, got ruts in my yard. What's up with this? Come on, man. And so
man.
It was I look at Megan, it was around September.
Yeah.
And I said, we got to figure something out. This is great. obviously God's moving,
Huge momentum.
but we need to start praying about a transition, because we can maintain this for only so long, because we really were growing by the mercy and the grace of God. We were growing in number, and so we started praying, and God answered in such an incredible way, and I'm gonna hold off on what that
Part
answer
3.
was for part 3.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you for part 3, and I think we're going to be at a different place for part 3, right?
Yeah, we are.
So stay tuned, you guys.